Hey, Sri. All right. Can you guys hear me clearly? Let's start. So if someone can respond, it'll be great. Okay, awesome. Awesome, awesome. Um, so let's begin. So I'm Siddharth Rajmohan, and I'm a faculty at the Goa Jazz Academy. So what we're doing here today is we're going to talk about our weekly playlist, which comes out on Sunday every weekend. Um, and it's usually curated by a faculty member or we have a guest. So this time we have none other than Karan. So Karan's an excellent musician, a familiar face around here, a very open-minded musician also, so to speak. Um, so he's played in a couple of bands like the Starshiners, Morkin and the Cats, the New Delhi Rhythm Section, etc. And today we are going to have him talk to us about the playlist. So he's curated this weekend's playlist, which is okay. Actually, so I'm just going to let him do the talking. Hold on. Hi.
Hey,
All right. So I've
can you
seen
see me
you.
okay?
Sorry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes. All good. All
Okay.
good.
All right.
So I've seen you I've seen you more recently, but for the other people, how are you doing and what's happening?
We're all good. Good as one can be in this time. So I think we're doing fine. We've got a lot of music coming up and a lot of things happening. So that's keeping us busy,
All
keeping
right,
both of
that's
us
good to
busy.
hear. Yeah, definitely. So we've been doing a lot of stuff with the education system, like how to revamp it and how
Yep.
to make it better for the students, etc. Also, I wanted to just ask you something. This is just, we can't ignore the crisis that's going on around. And I would like to just ask you, as a musician, how do you deal with this stuff and how are you coping with this stuff? I think it'll
Um,
be like really interesting for people to hear another musician's perspective.
I think at the moment, I think we're all just trying to understand what is happening. I think we've all realized that at the moment, at least for the next year or so, performances are not going to work out. So I think, at least as a school, we are trying to just figure out how to make sure we are ready for us as musicians to be able to sustain ourselves in the next coming years, because this is going to be an ongoing thing, and have a platform where like-minded people can come and work. So we're trying to create our own work right now. I think that's what's keeping us busy, and
Right,
just trying not to think too much of everything else all the time, right? So
right, definitely.
yeah,
So anything to keep ourselves distracted a little bit.
that's it.
All right. So I was just talking about our the Goa Jazz Academy Sunday playlist, your
Yeah,
Sunday soundtrack, and we were talking about how like different people come and curate it every Sunday, and this week
yeah.
it's you. So could you talk about it a little? Like what got you? What's the idea behind starting something like this?
Well, actually, I think one of the things was that I felt that although I love, um, every, I started out listening to music through metal,
Right,
and I think it really gave me a outlet in my teenage years to understand a lot of things. And it wasn't just metal; it was hard rock. It was all this stuff, and it was just cool, and it really made me kind of uh, make me feel things. I think that
right,
pop and all didn't. I mean, I felt stuff. I mean, the first bands I heard were Saigon Cake and early Metallica and stuff. And I think the first thing is you feel it, and I think that
right,
that's really what has stuck with me ever since. And I think like as as I've progressed as an adult and as a musician, you go into other things which you love as much, right? I mean, I love jazz, I love all
right,
the other stuff, but I didn't want to discount my roots, and I'm getting back to them. I'm really, really starting to appreciate more and more, especially over the last year, what
right,
the guitar means to me, and the guitar has a lot of it in this sort of heavy music, because
right.
it's really, really powerful. And even now, I mean, I still get goosebumps, and I think that's what's really cool, because it doesn't matter what you listen to. If it gives you goosebumps, it's cool. And
Right,
metal gives me
of
goosebumps.
course.
So if I
Right,
had a choice, I was like, why don't I just focus on something that I actually really just love and I really want to
right.
sort of pay a tribute to? Um, and that's where this playlist came from. And it's not just the playlist. I think it's a stamp in my sort of career as a musician that these are my roots. I acknowledge them, and I will always cherish them. You know,
Right,
that's
right.
that. Yeah. Even though
Also,
even though it's a weekly playlist, it's still something,
right.
right?
It's definitely something. Also, so yeah, I went through the playlist a little bit, and I was quite surprised to find a lot of the bands that I haven't listened to in years, just their names just suddenly bringing back a rush of, it's a crazy nostalgia. Like Machine Head, for example. I think the last time I heard them was 2011, something like that. So it was crazy to see a name like that and be like, wow, that's crazy. So what are the earlier bands that you would listen to? Like what's a good place to start for somebody
So so
who
this
wants to
is
get into metal music?
Yeah, I think there are two distinctions. I mean, at least I've made that distinction. One is that there's metal before 2000, the year 2000,
Right,
roughly,
right.
and there's metal after that. And
Okay,
I'm not an expert on this, but at least I know because it's been on my phone and my thing, So I know that mentally there was always this sort of distinction because after 2000 you had a lot of bands which were what we call sort of metalcore, melodic metal, and all of this new stuff which was deeply inspired by punk and very
right,
very sort of even to a certain extent death metal, but also very mainstream like Kill Switch
right,
Engage, right?
right,
And
right,
actually what really inspired me was I got to see them live once, and I thought it was right when they were starting out, and it was just such an amazing act. I mean, it was in some tiny little bar, and it must have been in early 2000, and it was just an incredible experience to see that kind of energy, to see these guys so in love with what they were doing, and they were all incredible
right.
musicians, right? Um,
Of course.
and it sounded nothing like what it would be today, what that band was. But if you want to start with metal, I would say that start with something easy. To me, the modern metal that's in this playlist has a life and a sort of a trajectory in itself. And
Right,
to me, modern metal starts with Pantera, really in the 1990s, right? Because they broke
right,
the mold and they brought in groove. Like they were really like a funk
right,
band, just
yeah,
playing really heavy thrash, right?
right,
And I think that that's where it all started. So if you look at the playlist, which is out now, the first song I put in is by Damage Plan, which was the last band that Dimebag Darrell played in,
that'll play it for,
and
yeah,
that's really where this kind of sound I think started from. Where you had these incredible solid state amps and these guitars just crushing it. That
right,
I mean, it was just great songwriting,
yeah,
um, and it was palatable. I mean, it's 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 really where you start. If you want to go technically into metal, you would go into the 80s, early 80s. You go into the thrash movement, the power metal stuff, and
right.
that's cool. But I don't think it's everybody's cup of tea. You know.
So what would you say is like the top three bands that you would recommend to somebody who wants to, get into metal or has
Okay.
started listening to metal but doesn't know what to exactly go
Okay,
for?
I would say listen to Kill Switch Engage, number one. I would
Right,
say listen to a band like maybe Tesseract. I think those are good places to start. There's a great band that's actually originated from India called Sky Harbor,
oh
uh,
yes, yes,
which is phenomenal. And I think Keshav Dhar, who's also from Delhi, he's an amazing guitar player. And those guys kind of really started this whole new progressive metal kind
metal
of
movement,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So those
certainly,
are those are good places to start. Pliny's great, but if you want to get into, but from there you can go into heavier stuff, right? I mean, for example, you can go into Lamb of God, which is great. All the new Slipknot is great.
right,
So the way we've kind of structured this playlist is exactly that: is to kind of give you a stepping stone into metal that's not too jarring. But by the time you get to the end of it,
right.
you're gonna need a lot of patience, right?
Patience, yeah,
Because we've got bands like Obscura and all, which
yeah,
are really, really pretty crazy. In fact, one of the things it strikes me. One of the reasons I really kind of got back into this was I started watching this YouTube channel called A Jazz Drummer Reacts.
oh yes,
And everybody should check it out, okay? And I'm gonna try and find it on my computer and show it to you. It's amazing because it's just this really funny guy who's not a metal drummer, but he watches all these crazy metal drummers play live, and it's just it's amazing because it's so much fun. But you just see how incredible this stuff is. Just watching
Right.
metal musicians play, any musician play, but especially like drummers, go through blast beats and all these things. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's
Right.
just, it's precision. It's all this other stuff, which
Right.
is just, I mean, it, like I said, it
Unbelievable.
gives you
Yeah.
goosebumps, right?
Right. I agree. I agree.
So yeah, so that's where, that's where I would say you start. So it's a good question because I think there is so much to do. And actually, the problem with music in general, I think it's not the problem, but music is subjective, right? So it doesn't matter if I come up with a playlist. There will be 10 people. There will be somebody who says, well, there's also this and this and this and this and this. But I think you've got to go with what you like. And one of the things I've kind of is important to me at least is having some kind of melodic element in the
Right.
music, right? Which is very strong, like a good hook, whether it's melodic or vocal.
Right.
That makes it easy for people to kind of understand. So if you look at all of, let me try and see if I can flip my screen. So, I mean, everything that you start off with here, Mastodon is great, Gojira, all of these are brutally heavy. I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's really, really heavy stuff, but, it's got hooks. So,
Right.
yeah, that's just trying to make it more palatable, I guess, to a certain extent.
Sweet. Sweet. So for those of us who joined us a little later, we're having a conversation about the Goa Jazz Academy playlist that comes out every Sunday. And this weekend, the topic is metal. So all the tracks that you're going to be listening to is, as he puts it, it's a nice place to start for nice place to start for anyone. Also, just to enjoy some great metal music. Also, yeah, let's get back to it. So now it's interesting that you were talking about how the jazz drummer reacting bit. So I just wanted to ask you, I mean, I'm a big metal fan myself, but do you find any commonality between jazz and metal?
Um, I, I don't know. I think the commonality is actually in the idea that both are so anti-establishment, that they're so against the grain.
Right,
If you listen to good metal, like it's not meant to make you feel easy,
right,
right? And to a certain extent, neither is great improvisation in jazz, right? I mean, if you listen
right,
to some of, if you've never heard jazz before and you hear Coltrane, it's not going
right,
to be easy. Or some of Charlie Parker's, live recordings or something that, we as quote unquote more, I mean, musicians would appreciate, who appreciate jazz, listen to. It's not easy to hear, right? It's not easy to understand what's going on. So I think that's what's really cool, that jazz and metal have an attitude associated with them, right? And I
right,
think that's
right,
what's really
definitely.
cool. I mean, they're really against the grain.
Right,
Metal is all about, just like jazz was, just like bebop came out in the early
right,
40s. It was, they're underground, after hour places where this stuff happens. And the same
right,
with metal. In fact, there's a really interesting documentary on the origins of metalcore, which is now a very, like, bands like Hatebreed and all, which you'll find in the playlist.
right,
And there was a movement in the early 80s that came from punk, and it was called straight edge. And straight edge was a bunch of these really, really incredible musicians who got together, and they were making this vicious punk. They were all vegan, all complete
wow,
teetotalers, didn't touch alcohol, didn't do drugs. They were against the grain of the coke kind of inhibited 80s.
right,
And it was incredible. This music was, I mean, you can't even fathom it. So
right,
so they all had principles, right? The principle was like to go as far out as you possibly can on something.
right,
So
definitely. So
yeah.
it's interesting that you said this because when I saw the name Immortal, all I could think of was three guys running around in a forest, shooting their videos. But all their songs were about nature, much like Gojira. So
Right.
it was so against the current trends, or
Yeah.
something like that. So it's like it's nice that you put it like that because that's the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw Immortal, the band.
Yeah,
It
and
was
they're
pretty
all,
much
and I think that's been the amazing pull of metal, right? To a certain extent, it is, I would say, at least, I mean, you have big metal festivals all over the world. Download, I mean, there are hundreds of them, right? Not hundreds, they're really, really good ones. And I think if you look at the crowds, there's obviously something about this type of music which draws a reaction from people.
right.
and I think it's incredible to have that kind of an emotive connect with something. All music does. I think maybe it's the attitude of metal which creates that. I don't know. You know, the
Right,
black.
definitely.
Maybe, I don't know.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, that sounds good. So I hope we have like a part two of this series as well,
Yeah, and
because
we got some really good inputs, and you know, there's some really great musicians who are contributing to the next one as well. I just wanted to give a kind of an overview of, you know, the bookends of modern metal, right?
right,
And maybe
right,
maybe in 5 years, like for example, Killswitch Engage. I don't know if it's considered modern metal anymore, but it is, at least in this playlist, right? Maybe
right.
in a couple of years it won't. But that's a really kind of important um, consideration. So yeah, so it's just to have fun with this, right? And if you look at it, let me try and show you what we have. And it's available it's on Apple Music, Spotify, and on YouTube. So it starts all the way up here with the early 2000s, Damage Plan, Kill Switch. These are all stuff that was written earlier on.
Right.
Well, this is later on. And then it goes all the way into some really incredible sort of gent, progressive rock, and some really, really, I mean, this, I have to show you. If you have the patience to listen to Nile, where we have
Oh,
Nile, here. Now, this is one hell of a tune. Oh, my goodness. I mean, that is some
that's
crazy,
nuts.
crazy playing. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
The first
So,
time I saw George Colliers play on YouTube, I was floored. I still don't think that can be matched, but
well,
the
I think
precision and speed of how they execute their things is unreal.
so much of this is drummer driven, right? I mean, modern metal is about the drummer. Of course, it's about
Right,
guitar tone and stuff, yes,
right.
but you know, the real show for me at least are the drummers. I mean, if you look at Coleus, for example, or you look at who's the German guy who played with Obscura. Um, well,
Uh,
we'll figure it out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but they're all incredible, right? So that's the point. But yeah, I think it's a good starting point.
yeah. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Okay, so would you like to add anything more into what you're doing in the days now during the lockdown,
Yes.
and how are you planning to come out of it? Like, what do you have? What plans do you have?
So what we're doing is now we've moved more or less online, and we have really good infrastructure to teach online, and we also have a new process of doing a lot of self-guided courses that we're going to be pushing out all summer. And that content, I think we're really excited about, from drums to jazz guitar. I mean, the jazz guitar program, the jazz bass program, and the rhythm experience and ear training programs, and also the introduction to drums. These are our sort of
Right.
focal points, and we've really refined these to the point where I think we're ready to, uh, you know, put our faith and our
Right.
reputations on the line for this. So I think that's really what we focused on. We're just doing a lot of content, as you know, and yeah, we're just excited to put our heads down and work right now. That's it.
All right, that sounds good.
I
That sounds
see.
good.
I see some comments. I see Arjun. I have to catch up with what he said, but I will do that.
Someone
Anyway.
says nobody gives any love to bass players.
Oh,
I think,
bass players get a lot of love.
yeah. Rex Brown is one of my favorite bass players of all time, so I'm sure that's
Hi,
something.
Arjun. It's good to see you.
All right, all right, all right.
So
Okay,
the point is,
yeah.
so next week we have a great playlist which is going to be compiled by our dear friend Lucia, and it's going to be really, really nice, and it's actually going to be wonderful. It's going to have a lot of variety, so we will put that in, and definitely tune in for that as well. We'll do a little interview with her, and that's it.
All right, sounds good.
All
So,
right.
for those of you who came in a little later, the playlist is coming out tomorrow morning
Well,
at.
it's out. We've just
It's
released
out,
it.
it's out,
It's
it's
out.
out, it's out. So it's
It's coming
out
out
for all
now.
of you to listen to, And please, if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, please drop in your email ID in the DM, and we shall see you guys soon.
All
Until
right.
next week, actually. So see you guys next week.